Okay, it's just been a quick video just documenting this, but it looks a bit chaotic. So what we've got here, these are some a bunch of springs which I have connected together. And if you put them on this power supply, it hits the 5 amp limit quite a way. So about 7 volts, it hits the 5 amp limit, which is about however many watts it is. It's on screen now. And I thought, right, I want to see how hard I can push this. So I've got this little converter here. Let me just get rid of the fan. That's what the power supply there is running at the moment. It's just doing that fan. But this will take a voltage in and then concurrent limit and boost it up. So this is currently taking in 12 volts and sending out about 35 volts at around 7-ish amps. So originally I had it powered from this power brick. So this will do, it's rated at 16 amps, but you can get 17, 18 out of it if you're lucky. So at 12 volt, obviously. Then that kept cutting out. So now I've got this computer power supply, which I have so jankily converted to a 12 volt power supply. So you can see it's that's the only connector left on it aside from the 5 volt lines here. But I'm just going to use this as a power supply now. So what we're going to do is I've got meters here. So this is voltage, this is current. And then we're going to see exactly how much we can shove through this tiny little bit of spring. Okay, so what we've got here, this is a spring. And it's connected to this computer power supply, which will do about 250 watts through these cables into the spring. Unfortunately, because this trips out if you just plug it in, turn it on, but the hotter the spring gets, the lower its resistance. So what you can do is once the spring gets to a certain temperature, the power supply will start working because the resistance will be lower, so the current can flow, and there won't be as much current the hotter it gets. So what I've got right now is you could just sit here pushing the button for ages and having the power supply constantly trip out, and that does get it hot enough after about 90 times of doing that it just starts and keeps going. But instead what I've got is I've got these 4 wires on the side going to this power supply, which is doing 5 amps at 5 volts, this power supply, which is doing about 5 amps at another 5 volts. So that way it keeps the spring preheated and keeps it warm enough that I can turn the power supply on straight away. You can see the voltage has now gone up to 13 volts on those 2 power supplies. They're current limited, so they're not fighting each other. And they're just, it's all going in and it's all together. So we've got about 500 watts right now going through this spring by the time it gets to... yeah, that's about 500 watts now. We're at 14 volts across that spring between the power supply, the computer one, and the 2 others. Sorry, it's not focusing. There we go. So it does get rather warm, and yeah, it's pretty... I can feel the heat all the way from way back here. It's very orange. I would also not recommend dropping it when it's that hot. You might even be able to see that connector smoking as it is quite hot. But yeah, we don't worry about that. We just keep it turned on and see what happens.